The auction listing said, asterisk structural integrity, unknown. Weapons systems, offline. Crew history, classified. Minimum bid, 7 credits, asterisk 7 credits. Less than a bowl of Valorian noodles at a port diner. Every serious buyer at the Galactic salvage auction had already walked past it, twice. The old warship sat in docking bay 9, like something the universe had chewed on and spat out. Its hull was scorched black in places, dented in others, and one of its rear thrusters looked like it had argued with the moon and lost. The registration plate was half melted. The cargo hold doors wouldn't close all the way. 3 separate inspection drones had malfunctioned to try and scan it. Nobody wanted it, except one human, and he wasn't even sure why. Marcus Vell was 31 years old, broke in 4 currencies, and running out of time on every timeline that mattered. He had 7 credits left in his account, literally, and a gut feeling that the most embarrassing ship at the auction was also the most important one. He placed a bid. He won, and then the ship started talking to him. What followed was not the story he expected. It was bigger, stranger, older, and far more dangerous than a scratched-up hull and a busted thruster. Because that ship had a past, and the past wasn't done with it yet. This is the story of how one broke human accidentally inherited the most wanted warship in 3 galaxies, and what he did when everyone came to take it back. The Galactic salvage auction happened every 3rd cycle on Karath Station, tucked between a fuel depot and a noodle bar that smelled like regret. Dealers came from 14 systems. Collectors flew in from further. Scavengers, merchants, military scouts pretending to be merchants. They all packed into the bidding hall and threw credits at junk ships, broken equipment, and whatever else the universe had finished with. Marcus Vell had been to 6 of these. He had never bought anything. He had never had enough credits to buy anything. He came because it was free to walk in, and because looking at broken things made him feel slightly less broken himself. He was not a pilot by profession. He was not a soldier, an engineer, or anything with a title that sounded useful in a crisis. He fixed atmospheric converters on Karath Station's lower levels. The kind of job that paid just enough to keep a man breathing and not nearly enough to keep him comfortable. He was good at it. He was also deeply, profoundly tired of it. He spotted the ship on his way in. It was in Docking Bay 9, which was the auction's version of a clearance bin. Ships in Bay 9 were the ones nobody had bothered to describe properly in the catalog. This one got 2 sentences. Asterisk armored class warship, origin unspecified. Sold as is. Asterisk, that was it. No tani. No drive class. No weapons inventory. No crew history. The ship itself was massive, longer than most freighters, lower to the ground, built wide, and dense the way things are built when the priority is surviving hits rather than winning races. The armor plating was layered in a way Marcus had never seen before, overlapping like scales, dark gray with a faint blue tint that showed up when the dock lights caught it at an angle. It looked ancient. It also looked underneath all the damage and grime and the one thruster hanging loose like a broken tooth, like it had been something extraordinary once. Every inspector who got near it turned around and left. One of the automated assessment drones shorted out 2 meters from the hull. Another just stopped moving and sat there, which the dock crew said had never happened before. The 3rd drone flew directly into a wall for no reason anyone could explain. The other buyers gave it a wide berth and moved on to safer options. A clean cargo freighter in Bay 3 went for 40,000 credits inside of 4 minutes. A mid-range patrol ship in Bay 5 drew a bidding war. Bay 9 sat quiet. Marcus stood in front of the armored ship for a long time. He could not have explained what he was looking for. He ran his hand along the hull, plating near the access ramp, and the metal was warm, not hot, not alarming, just warm like something living was on the other side of it. The armor had symbols etched faintly along the lower edge of the starboard side. Not any script he recognized. Not any script he'd seen in 14 years of working around alien hardware. His account had 7 credits. The auction minimum for any Bay 9 listing was 7 credits. He typed in the bid on his station comm before he finished deciding to do it. The kind of decision the body makes before the brain gets its vote. Confirmed. Sur binge. Sold. He owned a spaceship. He stood there for a full minute processing this. Then, the access ramp lowered on its own. He had not touched anything. There was no remote signal. The ramp just lowered, slow and deliberate, the hydraulics grinding slightly, but holding, and warm air rolled out from inside. Breathable Earth standard, which was wrong because the life support should have been offline according to the 2 lines of catalog information that were apparently all anyone had bothered to write about this ship. Marcus walked up the ramp. The interior was dark except for a faint blue pulse running along the wall panels. The same blue tint as the hull's armor. The layout was strange. Not alien strange in a way he couldn't parse, but old strange, like walking into a house where every room was almost familiar, but the proportions were slightly off. The corridor ceilings were high. The doorways were reinforced to the frame in a way that suggested they were built to hold against pressure, blasts, things trying to get in or get out. Every surface felt intentional. He found the bridge by following the blue pulse, which intensified as he moved forward. The pilot seat was at the center, everything oriented around it. Screens around the room were dark, but the console directly in front of the seat had one panel lit, a single input point, glowing soft blue. He sat down. He didn't plan to. The chair adjusted to him the second he made contact, which meant the ship knew his dimensions, which meant the ship was actively running systems it was not supposed to be running. The panel in front of him shifted. Text appeared. Not Galactic Standard. Something else, but he could read it. That was the part that should have scared him more than it did. He could read script he had never learned, and the text said, "Identity confirmed. Welcome back, Warden." Asterisk Marcus Vell had never been a warden. He didn't know what a warden was. He had fixed atmospheric converters for 14 years, and had never been called anything more impressive than employee of the 3rd cycle by a supervisor who couldn't remember his name. But the ship knew him. More text appeared. Asterisk authorization accepted. Initiating course systems. External identification lockout active. Threat assessment elevated. Recommend immediate departure. Asterisk, he looked at the screen for a long time. Then, from somewhere deep in the ship, not from a speaker, not from any visible source, from the walls themselves, a voice came. Low, measured, neither male nor female, neither warm nor cold. You took longer than projected. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. 31 years, the voice said. Acceptable variance. Outside, through the single forward viewport that had cleared itself of grime the moment he sat down, he could see the docking bay. He could also see, parked at the far edge of the bay in a ship that had not been there an hour ago, 3 figures in black and gold uniforms stepping out and looking directly at Bay 9. They moved like people who always found what they were looking for. Who are they? Marcus said. First words he'd spoken to a ship. Probably not the last. The people who lost me, the voice said. They have been looking for 11 years. They are not pleased that a human holds the claim now. What do they want? To take me back, and to make sure the Warden bloodline cannot authorize me again. The ramp sealed. The loose thruster locked back into position with a sound like a fist closing. The drive systems came online. All of them, not one, not two, all of them, and the ship began to hum at a frequency Marcus felt in his back teeth. What do I do? He said. The ship said, you fly. He had not flown anything in his life. The ship said, I will help. Outside, the figures in black and gold were running now. The drive went to full power in 4 seconds. The docking bay clamps released. Not because he unlocked them, but because the ship convinced the station's own systems to let go, which was something Marcus was going to think very hard about later. And the armored warship that nobody had wanted, that 7 credits had bought, that 3 inspection drones had failed to assess, rose off the deck and punched through the bay doors before they finished opening. The stars came in all at once. Marcus gripped the armrests and did not scream, which he considered a personal achievement. Course, the ship asked. He had no answer. Then, I will choose, it said, and the drive opened up, and Karath Station shrank behind them like a mistake he was already too far from to take back. The ship's name, Marcus learned, was Vale. Not a designation, not a serial number. A name it had chosen for itself approximately 300 years ago, during a period of galactic history that most current civilizations had quietly agreed to stop teaching in schools. It told him this on the first day, somewhere in the dark stretch between Karatha's system and wherever it had decided they were going. Marcus sat on the bridge, eating a ration bar from the emergency supplies he'd found in a compartment that opened before he'd thought to look for it. And Vale talked. The ship talked the way very old things talk, with the assumption that the listener already knows most of the context, which Marcus did not, and with the patience that was less kind and more geological, like a mountain explaining erosion. 300 years ago, Vale had been built by a coalition of species that no longer existed as unified governments, some gone entirely, some fractured into the smaller systems, and station territories that filled the current galactic maps. Built for a specific purpose, crewed by a specific lineage, given a specific authority that had no equivalent in modern military or political structures. The word the coalition had used was warden. The wardens were not soldiers. They were not diplomats. They were the people called in when a situation had moved past both options. The bloodline was old. Most of it was gone. What remained had been scattered deliberately. Someone had worked very hard, over a very long time, to make sure the warden lineage couldn't reconvene, couldn't authorize the old ships, couldn't do whatever it was the wardens had been built to do. Marcus Vell, atmospheric converter technician, was what was left of it. You could have told me this before I placed the bid, he said. You would not have placed it, Vale said. That's the point. That is also why I did not tell you. He spent a long moment staring at the star field. Can you at least tell me what a warden actually does? A pause, the kind that meant the answer was complicated. Historically, Vale said, a warden corrects situations that have been allowed to deteriorate past the point where institutions will act. Governments protect their interests. Militaries protect their governments. Wardens protected the condition of things that had no government. Like what? Populated worlds under blockade. Species being systematically displaced. Trade routes being used as strangulation mechanisms against civilizations that could not fight back through legal channels. Marcus thought about this. So, a warden is basically a person who shows up when everyone in authority has decided the problem is acceptable. That is accurate. And the people chasing us, the conclave of returning order, they arose during the period after the warden's last active generation. They filled the vacuum. They've spent considerable effort ensuring the vacuum stayed filled by them. They don't want competition. They do not want accountability. The star field outside shifted slightly. Vale had dropped them to slower travel while they talked, which Marcus had not asked for and appreciated anyway. He was beginning to understand that the ship made adjustments for him before he knew he needed them, the way a very experienced partner does. Not because they think you're helpless, but because they've done this long enough to see what's coming. Where are we going? He said. Meridian Station. There's a person there who has been waiting for you. Waiting for me specifically. Waiting for a warden. She will not know it is you until she meets you. But she has been waiting for 30 years. On the second day, Marcus explored. Vale was larger on the inside than its external dimension suggested, which the ship explained was a feature of the original construction method. Something about layered dimensional architecture that Marcus's current physics understanding couldn't fully accommodate. So he filed it under extremely unusual and moved on. He found crew quarters for 12, all of them maintaining themselves in a state of perfect readiness despite 3 centuries of vacancy. He found an armory that he spent 2 minutes inside before deciding he needed more context before touching anything in it. He found a medical bay that assessed him without asking, a faint scan, a brief hum, and then a panel lit up showing his biometrics with annotations in the same script he could inexplicably read. The annotation said his cardiovascular system was excellent, his stress hormones were high, but within functional range, and he had a hairline fracture in his left wrist that had healed incorrectly 4 years ago. He had broken that wrist. He had never told anyone. He had set himself and gone back to work. You've been running diagnostics on me since I sat down, he said. Since you touched the hull, Vale corrected. You are the warden. Your health is operationally relevant. My health has never been operationally relevant to anyone. The ship didn't answer that. It didn't need to. The silence was its own kind of response. The kind that says I know, and that ends now. Meridian Station came into view on the third day. Mid-sized, independent, not affiliated with any of the major current authorities, which Marcus was beginning to understand was relevant. Vale navigated the docking request process by simply sending credentials that the station's system accepted without hesitation. Credentials that, as far as Marcus could tell, should not have existed in any active registry. "How does the station know us?" he said. "It does not know you," Vale said. "It knows the authorization code. That code is written into the foundational protocols of every independently operated station built in the 3 centuries since the Coalition. A redundancy. The builders anticipated that the wardens might need to dock somewhere without announcing themselves. They planned 300 years ahead. They were thorough. The station itself was busy in the way independent stations always were, crowded, slightly noisy, smelling of fuel and food from 6 different culinary traditions. Full of people minding their own business with the focused intensity of people who had learned that other people's business was rarely worth the cost. Marcus walked through it in clothes that Vale had apparently cleaned overnight without comment, carrying nothing except his station comm, and the growing awareness that his life had changed in a direction he could not yet measure. He found the person Vale had sent him to in a repair workshop on the station's 4th level. She was old, not dramatically old, not ancient, but the kind of old that means someone has worked hard and carried weight for a long time. Her name was Senna. She had gray-streaked hair, pulled back in a way that suggested she'd stopped thinking about it decades ago. And she was elbow-deep in a communications relay that she appeared to be rebuilding from scratch. She looked up when Marcus walked in. She looked at him the way people look at something they've been told is coming for so long they've stopped believing it will arrive. "You're human," she said. "Yes. A warden." "Apparently." She set down the tool in her hand. Her face did something complicated that she immediately put away somewhere he couldn't see. "I've been watching the auction manifest for 8 years. Every galactic salvage cycle. Every bay, 9 listing. Why bay 9? Because Vale would never let anyone respectable buy it," she said. "It had to be someone who only had what they had. No access. No safety net." She looked at him steadily. 7 credits. 7 credits, he confirmed. She exhaled, picked her tool back up, put it down again. "There's a colony. 11 million people. A species called the Veth. You won't have heard of them. They've been under a conclave blockade for 4 years. The official story is a quarantine. The actual story is resource extraction rights, and a governing body that decided 11 million lives were an acceptable trade for mining access." She looked at him. "No authority will move. Everyone with ships is either conclave aligned or afraid to make enemies of them." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "What do you need?" he said. The question surprised her. She had, he realized, prepared for negotiation, for convincing, for argument, for a human who needed to understand the stakes before they'd agree to move. She hadn't prepared for someone who just asked what was needed. She recovered quickly. "I need someone to break the blockade. Crack it open wide enough that relief ships can get through. Make enough noise that the Conclave can't quietly reset the situation afterward. How many Conclave ships are holding the line?" 14. He thought about Vale. About the armor he hadn't known was there. About the drive that had come fully online in 4 seconds. About an armory he hadn't yet opened. "Vale," he said, to the air, knowing the ship was listening. It was always listening. 14 ships. "Can we do this?" The ship's voice came through his comm, which it had apparently synced to without asking. "We were built for situations exactly like this," Vale said, "and we have been waiting rather a long time to be used." Senna looked at his comm, looked at him. "The ship talks to you directly. Constantly." Marcus said, "Good," she said, and for the first time since he'd walked in, she looked like the weight had shifted. Not gone. Shifted to someone who had asked to carry it. She spread a star map on the workbench between them. The blockade coordinates blinked red at its center. "Then, let me show you what we're walking into," she said. And Marcus Vell, who had fixed atmospheric converters for 14 years and never been called anything important, leaned over the map and started learning what he was for. 14 ships was not a number Marcus had properly visualized until Vale dropped them out of faster travel at the edge of the Veth system, and the blockade filled the forward viewport like a wall someone had built between a people and the rest of the universe. They were arranged in a staggered grid, 2 rows, 7 ships each, close enough to cover every viable entry corridor, but spread wide enough that they weren't clustering their own weapons fire. Professional. Practiced. The kind of formation that said we have done this before, and we know you can't get through it. Marcus looked at the formation for a long moment. They're expecting freighters, he said. 8 ships. Things that can't take a hit. Yes, Vale said. They're not expecting us. No one has seen an armored warship of this class active in over 2 centuries, Vale said. Several Conclave commanders will not recognize what I am until they have already made errors. That's the window. That is the window. Behind them, in the cargo hold, Senna was coordinating with 3 relief convoy ships that had been holding at a secondary position for 4 years, waiting for exactly this moment, a moment that had never come because nothing that could make the moment possible had existed. Until 7 credits and a busted auction listing. The convoy ships were old. They were not armed. They carried medical equipment, food synthesizers, water reclamation units, and a generation of children born during the blockade who had never seen anything beyond the edge of the conclave's enforced perimeter. Marcus pulled up the comm channel and opened it to all 14 blockade ships simultaneously. He had thought about what to say. He had been thinking about it for the entire travel time from Meridian Station. He had considered strategy, considered authority, considered the precise language that would make the conclave commanders understand what they were dealing with before anyone had to get hurt. In the end, he kept it short. My name is Marcus Vale. I am the current warden of record aboard the vessel Vale, under the foundational authority of the original Coalition Compact, which supersedes your current operational orders, your commanding body's charter, and every regulation your organization has issued in the 300 years since the Compact was written. I am ordering this blockade dissolved. You have 10 minutes to begin withdrawing. He released the channel. Silence. Then the conclave command frequency lit up. They were talking to each other, not to him, which was fine. Let them talk. Vale said, they're attempting to scan us. And their scans are returning classification codes that their databases do not have on file. This is causing significant confusion at the command level. Good. The lead ship is powering weapons. Marcus had expected this. What do we do when they fire? Absorb it, Vale said. The armor will hold against anything in that formation. The first volley is the most important. It will tell the other 13 ships what they are dealing with. He understood. The first volley was not a threat. It was information. It would either confirm that he was bluffing or prove that he was not. And the proof would do more than any argument. Then, we let them fire, he said. Yes. The lead ship fired. 2 high-density pulse rounds, the kind that would have opened a freighter like a can. They hit Vale's forward armor and spread across the plating in a cascade of light. The blue tint going bright for a second, the whole ship shuddering once, not from damage, but from the impact force being distributed across the layered scale plate design. Then the light faded. The armor held. Not a single system flickered. Silence on every channel. Then, one at a time. Not all at once, but sequentially like dominoes falling in slow motion. The tactical readouts on Marcus's console showed 13 separate ships powering their weapons down. The lead ship did not. They will escalate, Vale said. I know. Marcus had his hands on the controls. Vale had been teaching him for 3 days. Not the theory, not the manual, just the practical muscle memory of it. The same way someone learns a new tool. His hands knew what to do better than his brain had caught up with. What are our options? We can disable their drive without hull breach. It will take 60 seconds in their firing solution. I will take 2 more hits during that window. Will the armor hold? Yes. Then do it. The 60 seconds were the longest of his life. The lead ship fired twice more. Marcus felt each hit in his chest like a punch from something large and patient, the ship absorbing it, redistributing it, giving nothing back except the faint blue glow that was already becoming the thing Conclave commanders would describe to each other later in voices that were quieter than their usual register. The return fire Vale sent was precise, not destructive, surgical, drive systems only, no crew sections, no life support, nothing that would kill anyone. The lead ship went dark on propulsion and drifted. The conclave formation broke. Not all at once. Two ships tried to regroup. Vale convinced them not to with two more precise shots that disabled weapons arrays without touching anything else. The remaining 11 made the calculation that commanders make when a math has stopped working in their favor. They withdrew. The gap opened. Marcus opened the channel to Senna. Convoy, you're clear. Move now, move fast. The three relief ships came through like something held underwater for 4 years that had finally been released. They moved with the kind of velocity that comes from desperation that has been disciplined into purpose. Every second counted. Every second had been counted for years, and now the counting was finally done. They passed Vale, close enough that Marcus could see the registration markings on the lead ship. Someone had painted a name on it in large letters that probably broke 3 different maritime conventions. Still coming. He watched them go through. The conclave ships held their distance. They would report this. Reports would travel up chains of command and eventually reach people who would understand what the classification codes had meant, who Vale was, what a warden with an active authorization represented. There would be a response. It would not be fast, and it would not be small. He thought about that calmly, which surprised him. 3 days ago, he had been an atmospheric converter technician with 7 credits and nowhere specifically to be. He was still the same person. He had the same hairline wrist fracture that had healed wrong. He still didn't entirely understand what a warden was in the full historical sense, with all its weight and implication. But he understood what he had just done, and he understood that it could be done again. Senna's voice came over the comm. She was in the cargo hold, watching the convoy's progress on the secondary screens. "They're through," she said. "All 3 ships. The Veth colony is responding." They are a pause. They're responding. He didn't ask what they were saying. He could imagine it well enough that specifics would have been smaller than the feeling. "Vale," he said. "Yes." "The conclave knows we're active now." "Yes." "They'll come for us." "Yes." He leaned back in the pilot's seat, the seat that adjusted for him, that had been waiting for someone with his dimensions for over 2 centuries. Outside the viewport, the Veth system's star burned steady and old, and indifferent to the politics of the things circling it. The convoy ships were small shapes moving toward a planet he had never seen, carrying supplies to people he didn't know, from a situation that had existed long before he'd ever bid on a ship he couldn't explain why he'd wanted. "Are there others?" he said. "Other situations like this? Other places where everyone with authority has decided the problem is acceptable?" Vale took a moment, the kind of moment that means the answer is long. "Yes," it said. "How many?" Another pause. "We should not discuss all of them at once," Vale said. "It would be discouraging." Marcus laughed. He hadn't expected to. The laugh came up from somewhere that had been quiet for a long time. Not loud, not performed, just real, the way things are real when you stop pretending the situation is other than it is. "All right," he said. "Then, show me the next one." The star field shifted as Vale calculated a course. The armored hull, the scratched, scorched, thruster-damaged hull that 14 separate bidders had walked past at a galactic salvage auction, caught the light of the Veth Star and held it blue and steady like something that had been waiting a long time for someone to finally put it to use. 7 credits. The only buyer. And a universe full of situations that everyone in authority had quietly decided were acceptable. Marcus Vell set his hands on the controls and flew.